So what's going on, my fish friends? Long time no see. And have you seen the new Waterfield zone? Pretty awesome, right? So for this video, I'll be showcasing a Coelacanth deck that I used to reach Diamond 1 back in Season 6. And what separates this deck from previous Coelacanth builds is that it has an easier time playing through at least one or two hand traps. The first involves normal summoning a tuna to bait our opponent's Ash Blossom before summoning Big Fish from the hand with Ice Jade Tremora. And our opponent will definitely use their Ash Blossom against this card because Beautiful Princess tends to be a huge choke point for many decks that use it. And now that we're in the clear, we can use our Ice Jade Cradle spell to search for our Ice Jade Tremora and add it to our hand. We can also use our Foolish Burial Goods to send Ice Barrier Trap card to the graveyard, banish the Ice Barrier Trap card, and add Coelacanth to our hand, so we can special summon it with Ice Jade Tremora. And to deal with Effect Veiler and Infinite Imperm, we will get a fish on the field with Coelacanth. So when our opponent tries to negate Coelacanth, we can use Coelacanth's second effect by tributing the fish and negating the activation of cards that target it. We also have the option of going into Bahamut Shark using any two of our level 4 monsters, and summoning Totally Awesome before our 4th or 5th summon. This will protect us from further interruptions like Niburu, and now we can summon our Big Fish from the hand. Now we can't summon Totally Awesome before summoning Big Fish as often as we would like it to, so Niburu is still a pretty big threat for this deck, but at least we now have options other than just relying on drawing Crossout Designator. Another advantage this deck has is that we can use our 3 copies of Foolish Burial Goods to add Gameciel to our hand. We can use it when going second to break our opponent's board, or to get rid of problematic cards like Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer. Using Foolish Burial Goods with Ice Barrier to search for cards helps increase the consistency of the deck, but it also has the disadvantage of locking us into summoning only water monsters for 2 turns. So this deck is built around getting the most powerful water monsters on the field. We have Barrier Statue of the Torrent, which prevents both players from special summoning monsters except water monsters. To get Barrier Statue on the field, we will use Prima Donna to special summon it from the deck. Prima Donna can target one of your opponent's banished cards, then you can add to your hand or special summon one level 4 or lower water monster from your deck, and if you do, you can add that target to their hand. Your opponent must have a banished card for you to use this effect. We will be using Trishula or Psyframe Omega Lord to banish a card from their hand. And to protect our Barrier Statue from spell and traps, we will summon Dragite with either Totally Awesome or Baron de Fleur. And to protect it from battle, we will summon Social Chenging or Stealth Kragan. The Ice Barrier Trap card can also protect Barrier Statue from battle by changing the opponent's attacking monster to 0, negating its effect and preventing it from changing its battle position. So let's begin one of our standard combos. So we're going to normal summon Leaf Fish. Leaf Fish then sends Coelacanth to the graveyard. And then we can special summon one of our extenders, and then Exi summon into Dugares. Dugares then detaches 2 materials to special summon Coelacanth from the graveyard. And then we activate Coelacanth's effect to pitch one of our cards and special summon 4 fish from the deck. We will summon Fishborg Launcher, Beautiful Princess, Gluttonous Reptolphin Griefis, and Lifeless Leaffish. Launcher, Beautiful Princess, and Coelacanth will synchro summon into Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier. We'll use Trishula's effect to banish 1 card from our opponent's hand. Using Gluttonous and Lifeless Leaffish, we synchro into White Aura Monoceros, and then using Monoceros' effect, White Aura Monoceros targets Coelacanth in the graveyard, and then we chain block with Gluttonous, increasing Monoceros' attack by 200 for each card in our opponent's hand. Monoceros' effect resolves, we special summon Coelacanth from the graveyard. We can now grab Area the Water Charmer from our extra deck and link away Monoceros and Dugares. And because we have a water monster in our extra monster zone, we can link it away and our Trishula into a Marincis Coral Anemone. We banish Leaf Fish from the graveyard and we shuffle Monoceros and 2 tuners back into the deck, and leaving a tuna in the graveyard because we'll need that later, then we'll draw a card. Using Coelacanth's effect, we pitch 1 card and special summon 4 fish from the deck. We will special summon Gluttonous, our level 3 tuner, and any Leaf Fish left in the deck, Using our level 3 tuner and Coelacanth, we Synchro Summon into Sword Soul Changing. And with Gluttonous effect, we increase its attack to 4000. Next, with our 2 level 4 fish, we Eggsy summon into Bahamut Shark. We don't summon Toad just yet, instead, we use Marincis Anemone's effect to special summon Gluttonous from the graveyard. And then we trigger Gluttonous's effect to special summon Tuna from the graveyard. The effect of Tuna will be negated, but we won't be using its effect. We will then Synchro Summon into Prima Donna using Gluttonous and our level 4 fish. Then we can chain Gluttonous's effect to Prima Donna, increasing its attack to 2300. Using Prima Donna's effect, we can target one of our opponent's banished cards, and then special summon Barrier Statue from the deck, and add the targeted card back to our opponent's hand. Now using Prima Donna and Beautiful Princess, we Synchro Summon into Emancipator Rising Dragon. We can now use Prima Donna's effect to target one banished card and shuffle it into the deck. Bahamut Shark then detaches one material to summon Totally Awesome to finish up our end board. And we happen to have a Foolish Barrel of Goods in our hand, so we're going to use it to send Ice Barrier Trap card from our deck to the graveyard. The Ice Barrier Trap card can be banished during our opponent's turn, so then we can trigger Social Changing's effect to banish a card from our opponent's side of the field and one from their graveyard. We can use it during our opponent's battle phase to surprise our opponent when they try to defeat Barrier Statue in battle. So this is how we get to our end board with Dugares. Now let's talk about how we get to the end board with Ice Jade Tremora. Well, using the Ice Jade Cradle spell, we search for Ice Jade Tremora. We then use the Foolish Barrier of Goods spell to send the Ice Barrier Trap card to the graveyard. We'll then banish the trap card to send Coelacanth to the graveyard and add it to our hand. Tremora sends itself from the hand to the graveyard to special summon Coelacanth from the hand. Coelacanth then pitches one card to summon 4 fish from the deck. Launcher and Tuna Synchro Summon into Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier to banish one card from our opponent's hand. Gluttonous and Leafish Synchro Summon into Monoceros, and then special summon Coelacanth from the graveyard. Gluttonous starts a chain, increasing the attack of Monoceros by 800 points. We then link away our 2 Synchro monsters into Area of the Water Chummer. Leafish then shuffles our tuners and Monoceros back into the deck, and we draw a card. Pitching one card and summoning 4 fish, Gluttonous and Coelacanth Synchro Summon into Sword Soul Changing. And our 2 Leafish Eggsy summon into Bahamut Shark. Bahamut Shark summons Totally Awesome. Bahamut Shark and Area of the Water Charmer link summon it to Marincis Anemone above an empty monster zone. Marincis Anemone summons Gluttonous from the graveyard, and Gluttonous special summons Tuna from the graveyard. We Synchro Summon into Prima Donna. Prima Donna targets the banished card, special summons Barrier Statue from the deck, adds the banished card back to their hand, and then we Synchro Summon into Emancipator Rising Dragon. And after being sent to the graveyard, Prima Donna sends the banished card back into the deck. Set called by the Graven, pass. Our opponent activates a spell to search for a Sword Soul card. We're going to negate that card. They normal summon Ecclesia and try to special summon a Moye from the deck. We're going to negate that with our Called by the Grave. And with that, our opponent scoops. So let's say you summon Bahamut Shark and Totally Awesome, and your opponent doesn't use Niburu, they don't use any hand traps, and now you have this Toad on the field, and now you can summon only 3 fish with Coelacanth. Well, there are still many ways to get to the same end board, and I'll show you how. So Coelacanth pitches one card, and we special summon Fishborg Launcher, Gluttonous, and Lifeless Leafish. Using the Fishborg Launcher and Coelacanth, we Synchro Summon into Emancipator Rising Dragon. Now with Gluttonous and Lifeless Leafish, we Synchro Summon into White Aura Monoceros to bring Coelacanth back from the graveyard. Using White Aura Monoceros and our Bahamut Shark, we can link it to Marincis Coral Anemone. And then in our graveyard, we'll banish Lifeless Leafish and shuffle 3 of our fish back into the deck. We'll need to shuffle our launcher back into the deck and leave Gluttonous in the graveyard. We draw a card, and now we can use Coelacanth's effect. This time we summon Fishborg Launcher and Tuna from the deck. Using the Tuna and the Launcher, we Synchro Summon into Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier. We then use Trishula to banish a card from our opponent's hand. Coral Anemone will summon Gluttonous from the graveyard. And if you happen to have only water monsters in your graveyard, you can special summon Fishborg Launcher from the graveyard, and then use it to Synchro Summon with Trishula into Sword Soul Changing. Gluttunous then special summons a level 4 fish from the graveyard, and then we synchro summon into Prima Donna. Then using Gluttonous's effect, we increase Prima Donna's attack to 2300. We then use Prima Donna's effect to get our barrier statue on the field and add their banished card to their hand. Gluttunous can only special summon a fish, sea serpent, or aqua from the graveyard with an equal or lower level than the number of cards in your opponent's hand. So if your opponent has less than 4 cards, you won't be able to summon a level 4 to synchro summon into Prima Donna. But you can instead summon Tuna from the graveyard to grab a Buzzsaw Shark from the deck and then exi summon into Kragan, assuming you haven't used Tuna's effect this turn. Then you can use Buzzsaw Shark's effect to grab a level 4 fish from the deck, preferably a right hand shark, and then exi summon into Kragan. So what happens if you have barrier statue in your opening hand? Well, that's pretty easy. You get it into the graveyard in your first loop. In this case, I'm exi summoning with it into a Bahamut Shark and throwing it into the graveyard, summoning Totally Awesome. And my opponent tries to negate Cradle, but I negate it with Totally Awesome. I add barrier statue back to my hand with Totally Awesome, and then use Tremora to summon Big Fish from the hand. Big Fish then pitches barrier statue and throws it into the graveyard. And then I summon Trishula. Trishula banishes a card from their graveyard and their hand, and then I synchro summon into White Aura Monoceros, bringing Coelacanth back to the field. This time I use Launcher to special summon itself from the graveyard to synchro summon into Emancipator Resin Dragite. Then using Trishula and Bahamut Shark, I link summon into Marincis Anemone. Leafish shuffles 3 fish back into the deck, and then we draw a card. Coelacanth pitches 1 card, and we summon 3 fish from the deck. We exi summon into Stealth Kragan, and then using Gluttonous and Coelacanth, we synchro summon into Baron de Fleur. Marincis Anemone then summons Barrier Statue. So if you draw into Barrier Statue, you get it into the graveyard, you set up your board, and at the end, you summon it from the graveyard. Pretty easy, right? So in this replay, we're playing against Sky Strikers. And with this opening hand, we have 2 ways to combo, and we have 3 extenders, Silent Angler, Tiny Spirit, and Ice Jade Tremora. They use Rite of Asimir to summon an adventure token. Then in response to normal summoning Ray, they add Draco back to their hand. They link away the Ray into Shizuki, then add a Wandering Griffin to their hand, discarding the Draco back, and when discarded, equips to an adventure token. They special summon Wandering Griffin, and at the end phase, using Shizuki's effect, adds a Sky Striker spell to their hand. So we get really lucky here in top deck Gameciel. So here I normal summon Tuna to bait Ash Blossom. If they had one, then I could special summon Leafish from the hand with Tremora. Leafish sends Coelacanth to the graveyard, and then we exi summon it to Bahamut Shark. Bahamut Shark then summons Totally Awesome, and then we enter the battle phase. We get rid of their Link monster, and they bring Ray back from the graveyard. Now in the main phase 2, we overlay Bahamut Shark with Zeus, and we use its effect to wipe the board. And because Totally Awesome was sent to the graveyard, we can use its effect to add Coelacanth from the graveyard to our hand. Tremora summons the Big Fish, and the Big Fish summons the Little Fishes. We synchro summon into Trishula to banish a card from their hand and a Ray from the graveyard. White Aura Monoceros is synchro summoned to bring Coelacanth back. And this time we bring Launcher from the graveyard to synchro summon into Dragite. We link into Area of the Water Charmer, shuffle 3 fish from the graveyard into the deck, pitching 1 card to summon 3 fish from the deck. Then we'll synchro summon into Sorcel Changing, and exi summon into Stealth Kragan. Area of the Water Charmer can special summon a water monster from our opponent's graveyard, and we can use it to link summon into Marincis Anemone. And it's game over from here. So we didn't draw cards to combo, but we do have triple tactics. So I normal summon Beautiful Princess, it gets negated by Ash Blossom, allowing us to use our triple tactics. And we get really lucky here and draw Foolish Barely Goods. We send Ice Barrier Trap card to the graveyard, banish it from the graveyard, and add Ice Shade Tremora to our hand. Ice Shade Tremora discards itself to summon Coelacanth, and as soon as Big Fish hits the field, the game pauses a little, letting us know our opponent has a hand trap. So we get a fish on the board, we activate Coelacanth's effect, our opponent uses their Infinite Imperm, and we tribute the fish, negating the Imperm and allowing us to summon 4 fish from the deck. We summon Trishula Dragon of the Ice Bearer and banish 1 card from our opponent's hand, and we banish the Vishuda. There may be a situation in which you use Trishula banish a card and you end up banishing a Dark Ruler no more, or a Forbidden Droplet, cards you don't want your opponent to have. So of course you don't want to add those cards back to their hand with Prima Donna, so in those games you just won't be summoning Barrier Statue. And with that, the opponent surrenders, so let's move on to the next replay. So in this replay, I'm going to use Foolish Burial to send Right Hand Shark to the graveyard, and because I have no monsters on the field, I can special summon it from the graveyard. And now activating Instant Fusion to special summon Rare Fish. And then Exi summon into Bahamut Shark. Bahamut Shark then detaches one material and gets negated by Imperm before summoning Totally Awesome. And we don't want to end with just a Bahamut Shark on the field, so Tremora then discards itself to special summon Gluttunous from the hand. Gluttunous then uses its effect to special summon a Rare Fish from the graveyard, and we synchro summon into a White Aura Monoceros. White Aura Monoceros special summons Gluttunous from the graveyard, and then we synchro summon into a Baron de Fleur. And then we set the Ice Barrier trap card. We pass the turn to our opponent, and our opponent takes out our Baron de Fleur with a Kaiju. They then link summon into a Magic's Maiden and then set one card in their back row. We draw a card, and at the beginning of our main phase 1, we activate Bahamut Shark's effect to summon Totally Awesome. Our opponent activates their trap card as Shaddoll Schism, and they use it to summon El Shaddoll Construct, sending the Kaiju to the graveyard. Bahamut Shark's effect resolves, bringing Totally Awesome to the field. We enter the battle phase, and we activate the Ice Barrier trap card so Totally Awesome can beat over the El Shaddoll Construct, sending the Ice Barrier trap card to the graveyard, and then we can banish it to activate its effect, but we get hit with an Ash Blossom. We use Totally Awesome to negate the Ash Blossom. The Ice Barrier trap card's effect resolves, adding Coelacanth to our hand. Totally Awesome adds Ice Shade Tremora from the graveyard to our hand, and then we special summon Coelacanth from the hand and start our combo. We don't have to synchro summon Trishula because they already have banished cards, so instead I synchro summon into Emancipator Rising Dragite. It's pretty much game over from here, so our opponent scoops. And we're up against DDD, and DDD just got an upgrade with the release of the new selection pack Invincible Raid. Divisor King Deus Machinix makes its appearance in Master Duel. This card can activate once per chain, which is a very interesting effect because it's not once per turn, and when a monster card your opponent controls activates its effect, you can either detach 2 materials from this card or destroy 1 Dark Contract card you control, and if you do, attach that opponent's card to this card as material. So this card can steal a monster card if you use that monster card's effect. Pretty problematic card if you're going second. So the opponent has Divisor King on the field with 1 Dark Contract card and 1 material, now summoning a level 8 monster. Using the effect, you summon another level 8 monster and Exi summon into Kali Yuga, setting 1 card in the back row and ending their turn. Now during the draw phase, they activate another Dark Contract card. We activate Ice Shade Cradle to add Tremora to our hand, and then activating 1-for-1 to pitch Fishborg Launcher and summon a Tuna from the deck. Tuna then summons a Leaf Fish from the deck, and Leaf Fish activates its effect. Divisor King destroys a Dark Contract card and steals Leaf Fish, but Leaf Fish still sends Right Hand Shark to the graveyard because Divisor King does not negate. We Exi summon it to Stealth Crag and then use Tremora's effect to summon Coelacanth from the hand. Coelacanth pitches 1 card and Divisor King starts a Chain Bonanza, Ghost Ogre destroying Kragan before we can pop Divisor King, and Coelacanth's effect resolves. Kragan then summons Kragan Spawn from the graveyard when destroyed, and we link away the Kragan Spawn and a fish to go into a Marince's Coral enemy. Launcher special summons itself from the graveyard, and we synchro summon it to Trishula Dragon at the Ice Barrier and activate its effect on summon. Divisor King chains to Trishula, but Trishula's effect resolves, removing Deus Machinix from the field. And now that we have Coelacanth in the graveyard, we can bring it back to the field with White Aura Monoceros, and then use Leaf Fish to shuffle 3 fish back into the deck and draw a card. Coelacanth pitches 1 card and summons 3 fish from the deck. We synchro summon into Baron de Fleur, and then synchro summon into Sorcerer Chenging. An enemy summons Gluttunous from the graveyard, but we don't have a Tuna in the graveyard, so we can't go into Emancipator Rising Dragite this time. So we synchro summon into Prima Donna, and Prima Donna brings our Barrier statue from the deck. Baron then activates its effect to destroy Kali Yuga. We enter the battle phase, and then Chenging swings in, destroying a monster, and they add a Dark Contract card to their hand. Barrier statue destroys the monster, then Baron and Prima Donna go in for the kill. So we're up against Danger, and this deck takes forever to combo, so I've skipped ahead a bit, and this deck can end up with a much stronger end board, but they do get a bit unlucky here, and end up with a 2-mat Appaloosa, an IP Masquerena, and a Fairy Tale Snow. That's still 4 interruptions, which could still be a problem for us. So we draw a card and normal summon Leaf Fish. Using its effect, it gets negated by Appaloosa. We special summon Rare Fish using Ready Fusion. Then using Masquerena and Fairy Tale Snow, our opponent links into Nightmare Unicorn, activating its effect to discard Bigfoot and shuffle Leaf Fish into the deck, and Bigfoot destroys Rare Fish. Triple Tactics is used to take control of Appaloosa. We send Ice Barrier to the graveyard and banish it from the graveyard to add Coelacanth to the hand. Then using Tremora to summon Big Fish from the hand. And then our opponent activates Fairy Tale Snow, banishing 7 of their cards from their graveyard to special summon it and activate its effect. Appaloosa negates that effect, and then Coelacanth pitches a card to summon 3 fish from the deck. We synchro summon into Social Changing, and because there's so many banished cards, Changing reduces the attack of our opponents to 0. And with that, we have enough to OTK our opponent, and our opponent concedes. So right off the bat, we use 1 for 1 by pitching Right Hand Shark. If we get negated by Ash Blossom, we can special summon the Right Hand Shark from the graveyard. It does not get negated. We summon the Leaf Fish, sending the Coelacanth to the graveyard. We go into Dugares to special summon Coelacanth from the graveyard and use its effect by discarding the Maxi and summoning 4 fish from the deck. And boom goes the dynamite. We use Leaf Fish to shuffle 3 fish into the deck, and we get really lucky here, using Foolish Goods to send Ice Barrier to the graveyard, sending Coelacanth to the graveyard and adding any water monster from our graveyard to our hand. We use it to add Gluttonous and normal summon it to special summon Angler from the graveyard, and go into a White Aura Monoceros to special summon Coelacanth from the graveyard. Now I do a misplay here. I could have linked away the White Aura Monoceros and the token into an area of the Water Charmer, and then use Coelacanth's effect to summon 4 fish from the deck, but instead we summon 3 fish from the deck, using Gluttonous and Coelacanth to synchro summon into Changing, and then synchro summoning into Emancipator Rising Dragite, and passing our turn. We could have ended up with a better end board, but this will have to do. I negate the activation of their Destiny Hero Fusion spell, which was a misplay as well. It wouldn't have been able to special summon any monsters for the rest of the turn, and then I would only have to worry about DPE on the field, which would be pretty easy for Cheng Ying. So the activate Grass is greener. I checked their graveyard and they do have a Fairy Tale Snow, so I banished the Ice Barrier trap card to trigger Cheng Ying's effect, adding a Gamma Seal to my hand. Grass is greener resolves, then Cheng Ying's effect resolves. They activate Fairy Tale Snow. Cheng Ying resolves and banishes Snow before it can activate its quick effect. You can only activate a quick effect in response to an activation, not resolution. So Snow resolves, summoning itself from the graveyard, and then Cheng Ying resolves, banishing Snow. They use the Invocation Fusion spell to summon Invoked Mechaba, then shuffling the Fusion spell and adding the Invoker to their hand. They banish a trap card to change one face down monster face up, and use it and 2 other monsters to link summon it to Selene, gaining 1 spell counter for each spell in the graveyards. Then by removing 3 spell counters, it can special summon a spellcaster from the graveyard, and they link it away with Moon Maiden, and then link into Access Code Talker. They use Access Code Talker to destroy Cheng Ying. Cheng Ying banishes 1 card from your graveyard to protect it from card destruction, and because Cheng Ying's effect is a continuous effect and not an activation effect, Mechaba cannot negate Cheng Ying and banish it. No effect was activated. So our opponent realizes it's game over and scoops. So let's get it right this time. So we're on the other side of the field. Our opponent uses Niburu to tribute all of our fish, and normally this would be a death sentence to this deck, and most of the time it still is. But this time we normal summon Gluttonous, and using Gluttonous' effect, we special summon any level 4 fish from the graveyard. Then we synchro summon into White Aura Monoceros, and use its effect to bring Coelacanth back to the field. Then using White Aura Monoceros and the Primal token, we link into Area the Water Charmer. Leaf Fish then shuffles 3 fish back into the deck and we draw a card. Coelacanth then pitches that card, and we summon 4 fish from the deck. All of the fish are level 4, and we also have the Right Hand Shark that we shuffled back into the deck with Leaf Fish. Using 2 level 4 fish, we exi summon into Bahamut Shark. Bahamut Shark detaches 1 material and summons Totally Awesome. Then using Bahamut Shark and Area the Water Charmer, we link into Marince's Coral Anemone. Anemone then brings Gluttonous back to the field, and using Right Hand Shark and a level 4 fish, we exi summon into Stealth Kragan. Gluttonous and Coelacanth then synchro summon into Social Cheng Ying. Kragan then pops the Niburu and hits our opponent with some burn damage. So we don't end up with a barrier statue on the field, but we do end up with a decent board, and that's better than just having a token on the field. So in this free play, I break pretty hard. I pass a turn to my opponent, hoping they would just one turn kill me. They used Foolish Burial to send a card to the graveyard. They normal summon Buster Blader. They cut their life points in half, special summon a card from the graveyard, and then link summon it to Christian Hockey Fibrax. Infinite Imperm negates Christian Hockey Fibrax. They attack with their Hockey Fibrax, and set a card in the back row. I draw a card, activate Ice Shade Cradle to search the deck, deactivate Ash Blossom to negate it. Tremora tries to special summon Coelacanth, called by the grave negates it. So I pass the turn to my opponent. They skip to their battle phase, and then pass their turn. I draw Coelacanth, and it's Brick City. Now it's my opponent's turn. My opponent summons a Buster monster, and adds a trap card to their hand. They go for a direct attack, and link it to Almirage, and then set the trap card in their back row. I normal summon Tenny, they activate their trap card and summon a Buster Blader. Then they summon a Synchro monster from the extra deck. They equip the Destruction Sword to Buster Blader. I tribute it with Gameciel, then use Angler to Exi summon it to Stealth Kraken. Stealth Kraken destroys the Buster Dragon, then entering the battle phase, destroying itself, then summoning a spawn, and also destroying itself, summoning the Kraken from the graveyard to attack Almirage, and then in the main phase 2, using Kraken's effect again to destroy Gameciel, then ending the turn. Then in my opponent's main phase 1, Kraken pops the Hockey Fibrax and burn baby burn. Making our way to the deck list, which you can check out Master Duel meta links in the description. And we do have a deck size over 40, which isn't too bad because we have tuners like our launcher and 2 Gluttunous that we don't want to see in our opening hand. And to start our combo, we have 3 Beautiful Princesses and 3 Lifeless Leaf Fishes. We also have 1 for 1, which can search for our Beautiful Princess. And to combo with our starters, we have our extenders, 3 Silent Anglers, 3 Tenny Spirit Shathanas, a Right Hand Shark, which becomes an extender when you send it to the graveyard with Foolish Burial, and our best extender, Instant Fusion, and 2 Ready Fusions, which can be replaced for more budget-friendly alternatives like White Stingray and Ice Knight. Although White Stingray requires a water monster to discard and Ice Knight locks you into water, but we are using a lot of water monsters, so these extenders are not that bad. In the alternative way to combo, we have our 3 copies of Ice Jade Tremora with 3 copies of Deepsea King Coelacanth, and below that 3 copies of Foolish Goods to search for Tremora and Deepsea King Coelacanth, which can also search for our 1 copy of Gameciel. And we only need 1 copy of Barrier Statue, 1 copy of Monster Reborn, and 2 copies of Ice Barrier. And this deck is really weak to Max C, so we need our 2 Called by the Graves and 3 Ash Blossoms. I am running 2 copies of Triple Tactics. This card is pretty useful for breaking boards, because it can steal an opponent's card and you can tribute it with Area the Water Charmer. It's also pretty useful if you just need to draw 2 cards. You can replace this card with Dark Ruler No More, or just take it out of the deck altogether. And we have 3 copies of Max C. If it resolves and our opponent decides to take the Max C challenge, we're not really drawing into any cards to stop our opponent from comboing. So we're not making that much use of Max C other than to force our opponent to use up an Ash Blossom or to use up their Called by the Grave. So this deck does die to Niburu pretty hard, so if you want to make room for a counter, you'll have to remove the 2 Triple Tactics, maybe the Buzzsaw Shark and the Right Hand Shark, and then add Niburu, add an Infinite Imperm, and 3 Crossout Designators, giving yourself a counter to Niburu while also being very useful to trigger Changing's effect. But you will increase the chances of breaking by drawing too many hand traps and not having cards to combo, so you can reduce the amount of Max Cs you have. Moving on to the extra deck, we have Rare Fish, White Aura Monoceros, Deepsea Prima Donna, Emancipator Rising Dragite, Trishula Dragon of the Ice Barrier, Baron DeFleur, Social Chenging, Totally Awesome, Bahamut Shark, number 60 Dugares, number 4 Stealth Kraken, Stealth Kraken Spawn, Divine Arsenal Zeus, Marince's Coral Anemone, and Area the Water Charmer. You don't necessarily need to summon Trishula to banish a card. You could use Deepsea Minstrel or Psyframe Omega Lord, which would also make Psyframe Gamma a great hand trap to add to the deck. So there you have it. If you have other ideas you'd like to share on how to optimize or play the deck, then drop a comment down below. Goodbye, and have a wonderful day.